I can have a meme war with anybody and destroy them. And I've done it. And people actually bail at the end and go, who is this guy? He's got like every meme ever produced on the internet. He can knock us out with his memes. And I do, I have tons of memes. I'll just keep memeing them to death until they just surrender because they just can't do it anymore. They don't have the memes that I have. I have a folder on my computer just full of memes. And I can just go to that folder and open it up. And there they are, there's all my memes. And I started to, alphabetize my memes so I can find them more quickly. I realized not having them alphabetized was a problem for me. If you have, weapons, you have to be able to get to them. And you got to know where they are, which ones are where they are. So, I alphabetize them so I can get to them quickly and I can use them fast. Because a lot of times in a meme war, it's about speed. You got to get to your memes quick. If you can't get to them quick, you're useless. They'll just keep blasting you with memes and you can't fire back. You have to know where your memes are.
Okay, so actually, for Americans, we have two stages of qualifications in, I guess, what you would still call high schools. I think you graduate when you're 18 in America from high school. Is that right? Yes. And then you go on to college or university. In the UK, you do a first set of exams called your GCSEs when you're 16. And then you can stay on to do further education for A-levels up until 18. Or you go to like a BTEC college and you sort of specialize in something and you can go there and do that. And then you go on to university after that. So it's the same age that we go off, but just the different level, like different sets of qualifications and specializations and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So the A-level results came in this week and the GCSE results are due to come in next week. And they're going to be following the same exact procedure and process. But essentially what has happened is that at least 40% of students have been marked down an entire grade or multiple grades. And so this also doesn't seem to have been something that's affected people in the same situation. So, for example, say, I was predicted 3 A's in my A-levels and, Peter in the school 20 miles down the road across the train tracks where it's not maybe quite as well funded, is also predicted 3 A's because he's also very smart. But for some reason, Peter's been marked down to fucking C's mostly and maybe a B, and I've retained my 3 A's. And this seems to have happened like widespread across the country, obviously affected in the north a lot more than in the south, I think, as well, from what I've read.
It happened in Scotland too, actually.
Yeah, I think actually, from what I was gathering as well, Scotland have dealt with this in a slightly different way from how England are dealing with it, which also doesn't surprise me because they always seem to have a bit more of a fucking head on their swivel than anyone that's leading the UK, especially over the last 5 or however long years. But yeah, so lots of poor students, unfortunately, are getting fucked out of their grades.
So it actually follows an economic trajectory. That's pretty astounding, actually.
Absolutely.
Are we talking about predicted grades as in like what they predict kids in that area to get?
No, so it's part of that. It's also, so this is the fucked up thing, is that basically it came around, the subject, the fucking pandemic's hit, what we're going to do about exams. All the teachers said, we'll give you a recommended grade for every student, because they all have a personal relationship with their maths teacher and such and such and such, and they know how they've been doing and they know their performance. And so they're just going to judge them, basically, and they're going to give them a grade. Right. And based on their predicted grades and how well they've done, how well they've been doing, etc., all of these sorts of things. And so it would have been quite that to me sounds like also the fairest way. And this is how all the teachers in the UK have suggested to do the system. Gavin Williamson, the education minister, then basically said like, oh yeah, we'll listen to that, but we're also just basically going to look at generally how well your school has done. And then if that's also just not done so well, then we're just going to kind of generally, mark those lot down because then, fuck them. They're from a shit school, so they probably fucking, whatever. Doesn't matter.
That's
fucked. So it is pretty astounding. And so when you hear obviously there's a lot of conspiracy-minded people. I see it written on the streets when I go like down to the fucking shop, like COVID-19 is a lie. You know, I'm not going to take a vaccine. All these little slogans I see written around the streets these days. It's quite impressive. You know, but the thing is, like, I'm not going to take a vaccine. You don't trust big government. They're going to try and control you through microchips and fucking this and that. They want to decide who's rich and poor, who's going to have this access to this and that through the pandemic, who gets to keep their job and who doesn't. And through like fucked up fucking policy like this, it's kind of evidence that is actually what they're trying to do. And it's not as easy as like, oh, well, you know, you're in this postcode, so you go to a school that's a bit more underfunded. Now it's literally like, no, you don't even fucking deserve the grades that you actually do deserve, and you should just fucking go and work in a shop.
In that sense, it's kind of dangerous because it definitely it curtails like people's access to higher education, because that's usually the score that is basically evaluated by universities and stuff as well. To see, you know, basically the prospects for your future. And it just shows how this sort of thing is being used to codify the class structure that exists in the UK already. And it's incredibly disturbing.
I feel like it's another one of those things where all you have to do is just follow the money. And you'll see the answer for this, because I feel like it's the same. Weirdly, it's the same reason why the Democrats love Kamala Harris. Like, she's making money for someone. She's loved by someone, and that's the people with fucking money. And there's a reason why, like, the reason they say, "Oh, we got her for fucking you know, votability and electability, and we've done this schooling system for." They literally have said this even on the morning show on fucking Good Morning Britain. We've implemented this to maintain consistency. But at the same time, we are completely aware of how inconsistent it is. So we've amped up the, appeals capacity for this to like innate. So at the same time as saying it's for stability and for consistency, you've made huge contingents for the fact that it is actually not that. So the reason...
Yeah, you've established bureaucracy.
Yeah, literally. So if you've just undermined your own reason for actually implementing it, and you're holding with it so steadfast, even when all the experts have told you this is wrong, this is like you're fucking up these kids' lives, all of this stuff, that they're still going to implement the same system for GCSEs next week as well. It's like, okay, well, who's making the money? Someone's making the fucking money about this. Like, what schools are fucking getting funded? There's some fucking piece here that like people aren't like seeing or like finding. And I would want to find this in like a couple of weeks, and we're gonna know where all of this shit actually lies and why they've made these policy changes.
It's interesting too, because university is now such a crucial part of being able to get a job, any job, especially in the UK, where there's been sort of this massive influx in these sort of private for-profit universities. Universities that weren't that way are now that way. And there's sort of this weird like tacit encouragement to go to university and get yourself in a bunch of debt to basically get the same job that you would get if you walked out of high school, basically 20, 30 years ago. So like it's this weird, it's this sort of really weird way of codifying the really like rigid class structure that we have here. And this whole pandemic situation has definitely destabilized a lot of things for working class people. There's a lot of discourse going around about how, it's destabilized things for the ruling class. And I'm like, that may be the case in certain areas, but in a lot of areas, it's definitely destabilized things even further for normal, everyday working class and poor people.
It kind of astounds me that they would so blatantly do something like that, because like traditionally speaking, like class struggle in the UK is a little bit more pronounced because class is a little bit more pronounced, more codified into the structures, et cetera, et cetera. And you said that there's like conspiracy minded people, but I'm curious, like what the less conspiracy minded people are viewing this as, because it sounds so blatantly like, you know, we're doing this in a manner that affects students in less well-funded districts, which would imply like lower class students. Like that sounds blatant.
And actually it's not even, that's how inconsistent as well. So it's mostly in these lower sort of funded areas, but actually there are still quite a few numbers of quote unquote well-funded public schools, etc., that have also suffered from this. So I think the woman that was actually on Good Morning Britain was the headmaster of Ascot, which is, they've got Royal Ascot Racecourse just around the fucking corner. It's like, it's a very nice area. So for her to also be saying like, oh, well, poor William was predicted this and this in physics and further maths, and now he's got D's and C's when he's never had a D in his life. It's like it's just the weirdest thing about it as well, because just the consistency line. Why make the political decision and the stance that you're going to hold that decision by on consistency when you argue that the majority of the results are correct because 60% are happy with their grades. But then it's this thing as well in the pandemic of when you talk about percentages and things like population, that even fucking 0.5% is thousands of students, is thousands of people, is thousands of lives. And so when you say the majority of people and then 40% of them are fucking miserable and they're like been cheated and they've been fucked over by this, you can't say the majority. I'm sorry, but even in that circumstance, you can't say the majority. That might be statistically the case, but that's still fucked up.
Well, welcome to low society where you all get D's. You all fail. You're all getting D's. There's a D for you, especially you, Peter. No, Peter, you get an F. You get a straight up F.
That's fine.
Thank you guys for listening today. If you are listening on iTunes, please be sure to leave 5 stars. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, what is it? Leave a review. Yeah.
We've got like a couple hundred reviews actually.
Do we?
On Apple Podcasts.
Really?
Yeah.
Aww.
Oh, so I need to go and check
as you are writing your review, please use descriptive language.
Yes.
We're going to be grading your reviews on a predictive basis.
On a predictive basis.
Make them as creative as possible.
Yes,
Lie if possible.
Lie, yes. You could say we're great in a way that isn't realistic.
You should leave an open-ended essay question on the Apple reviews so that they can answer it like they would on a
Also
test.
follow us on Spotify.
You could also just copy and paste a negative Death Stranding review and leave us 5 stars, and I would also accept that as a funny joke.
Excuse me?
As long as they leave us 5 stars, I don't really care what they do.
I'm not even picking up that bait, seriously.
Yeah, we'll go off in a different direction entirely.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, tell us about the Peterson tea, because Jordan Peterson is someone that's been sort of out of the public zeitgeist / mind frame for a while now, and he's back again.
There's a reason. There's a reason why he's been out of the public eye for a long time, and it's such a tangled web. Where to begin? Well,
did he have another spoonful of cider?
No.
No, actually, no.
Oh, man. Well, basically what happened is that Jordan got addicted to, I think it was benzos. Because he was self-medicating because his wife was diagnosed with cancer, which is understandable. This is the story his daughter Michaela tells, by the way. Michaela says that Jordan wanted to be put in a consensual coma in a Russian hospital so that he could withdraw from the benzos, but basically not be
unconscious.
Basically not have to actually experience it.
Yeah.
So that's where he was for a long time.
In a coma, so just to be, he actually did that.
Yeah, in Serbia, wasn't it?
Yeah, some Slav country somewhere. And
Wow.
probably nurses and Adidas tracksuits and shit.
The most bougie version of Train Spotting I've ever heard in my life.
I know. It's well, okay. Jordan Peterson woke up from his coma similarly to Sleeping Beauty awakening from her slumber. I wonder what woke him up. Was it Michaela's kiss?
No, she didn't want him to wake up.
Yes.
Willing to bet.
That is part of the narrative. We're getting to that. Michaela has been giving us information, and it's mainly been Michaela. We've rarely actually heard from Peterson himself. So she's been posting pictures of him. He went on her podcast, explained the whole situation, and he looks bad. He's lost so much weight. He looks like he was held prisoner by ISIS for 6 months. It's horrible.
This is how I know that the left is kind of sick, because they've kind of created this weird fandom around this whole tragic situation that he's going through, in the same way that those people that like are like free Britney Spears have like basically
it's a true crime podcast that's just going on like
it's
in
literally
real time on Twitter
like
all the time about Jordan Peterson.
It sounds like it, and it's really like disturbing because okay, he says things that you may not agree with, but he's also a human being at the end of the day who's had a really horrible tragic thing happen to him.
It gets a whole lot worse because okay, so Jordan Peterson recently got coronavirus, and his daughter was seen clubbing, no mask on, in like some Slav nightclub and everything, like living it up, like making fun of coronavirus and everything, and then he gets it like 2 weeks later, which is horrible, but it makes her look like she is trying to kill him. Like, because she has a little mini empire coming up.
Yes.
She has her own diet. It's like this carnivore steak only diet
which she has enslaved him with, by the way.
Yeah, she got him on this diet. He can't even fucking, like Jake said.
This is the whole cider thing.
Jake said, he can't even have cider because he thinks the only food he can eat is literally beef and salt.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that does sound like a fairly tasty diet. Maybe for like a month, maybe not for like my life.
It's not to say that you're 100% wrong. However, like if you get so adjusted to like a mono diet like that, where like you drink cider and you're knocked on your ass in the way that he describes, maybe something's wrong with that diet.
Yeah, or also just not just that, but I think also, I mean, it's quite, if I'm honest, I don't know, obviously, their living situation. If Michaela lives with her dad, I think that would probably be kind of weird at the age that she is.
She's married with a kid.
Yeah,
and that's another part of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's another fun part of it, actually.
But I mean, so like, you know, but I mean, if she's in contact with him a lot, and he's someone that is like high risk, that doesn't have a very good immune system, that can't even have a fucking pint without going to hospital, that feels the need to fucking go and put himself in a coma to get over a fucking prescription drug, fucking like get over yourself, man. Like, this is someone that's weak, that can't fucking take illness, and now you're in a pandemic, and then you go out and you fucking party and shit. It is a little bit like
horrible.
Really?
Yeah,
it's
very
questionable.
To say the very
least. Yeah.
If I had a dad that was like fucking vulnerable, like how the hell would I be even going out risking myself and then having regular contact with him? Like that just to
make
me
the assumption that she didn't get sick. She could have easily brought the germs to him without having gotten sick. It's possible for that to happen.
But this just proves how the internet has made us all collectively like mentally ill, because number one, the fact that all three of you care so much about this is kind of ridiculous in the first place.
Last week, fuck, marry, kill Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was the Mary, okay?
Okay.
There's a reason.
Well,
he is by far the most tolerable of all of those people.
But even then, if the stuff that people are speculating about is true, obviously I'm not saying allegedly, if it's true or whatever, then there's a possibility that his daughter could be looking to make aggrandize herself off the back of her father's clout. And, you know, she's
already doing it, to be fair.
But she's of the generation, and she's of the sort of age and you know, exposure to online culture where that is sort of the norm these days in that regard, and that sort of thing is sort of expected in that regard. And I don't know why people are surprised if that's the case. Like, this is the sort of really crazy like world that
maybe
we're
the
living
coma
in right now.
stuff might be a little bit more than what we consider the norm.
And then the final little tidbit is that the guy she's married to, like, he's like a Stalinist.
Right, and like she's not though at all.
Yeah, she posted about how we argued all night about Joseph Stalin, and that's when
good for them.
I know.
Are
it's
they
actually nice.
Are
Maybe
they
they
plotting to kill Jordan Peterson?
Oh my god! Why is there this like weird like left TMZ getting into these fucking people's businesses? Like, let them live their lives.
I don't care, and I don't think that she's trying to kill her dad to take over some sort of Peterson empire. But as a topic of conversation, and as how you should be conducting yourself towards your fucking loved ones during a pandemic, that's like just common fucking sense.
Exactly.
You go out and fucking party, like full fucking stop. Like, not to be fucking mean, and I don't think that anyone the person that fucking invited me to this fucking thing is going to listen to this fucking podcast. So I'll just tell this fucking story, right? After all of this shit, all the live events and stuff closed down. So like fucking, I had a load of people that moved out of fucking London. Fucking moved back to London. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm having a fucking barbecue around mine. Everyone's coming, all the old crew from the radio and all of this shit. And he's just like, my dude, this isn't any fucking time. This isn't the summer. This shit's not over. Like, I'm not going to go to your fucking studio apartment with a garden and 20 other fucking strangers. You absolute fucking mental case. Have you got a fucking death wish? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, and he looked at me like I was fucking mad. And he's just like, like, when did the news come out that coronavirus is gone and that we're all fucking safe? Like, when did that fucking happen?
He's just like, I'm not taking no vaccines. No,
Seriously.
sir.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, man. It's all going to be up and fucking going soon. It's all fucking good, man. It's over with. It's just like, what the fuck?
In Aberdeen, they actually opened like everything, like bars and everything, whatever. And like we had like an explode. Like, you know how Scotland was doing so fucking well? We were down to like barely any cases. Aberdeen had like 52 like overnight. So they had to lock down the entire city. And I'm talking like, you're not supposed to go in, out, whatever. So if I'd stayed a couple extra days, I would have been trapped. Like, I wouldn't have been able to leave because Aberdeen had just had to completely shut down again.
Oh my
Insane.
God. It's crazy. Well, speaking of Jordan Peterson and Peterson's sort of like philosophy and stuff, the reason why I chose him to marry in Kill, Marry, Fuck last week is because he's actually like, he's not wrong about everything he talks about. Like, his framing is wrong. My major problem with him is that he puts too much responsibility on the individual for a lot of systemic issues. And I guess in that regard, I feel like the left causes pathology in the way that it makes people feel powerless. But I think that the right causes pathology in the way that it makes them feel like, small, because it's like everything is your responsibility. And if you're failing, then that's your fault. And that can cause its own form of pathology. But he's not wrong about a lot of things. And like one of the reasons that I like to listen to him as well is because he's a Jungian. And you know me, I'm all about my Jungian shit. I think he sort of has some of the Jungian concepts twisted, and he sort of tries to twist them for his political agenda.
Yeah, he gets some of it wrong, to be fair. Yeah. I even have a pretty like basic understanding of it, and there are things that I detect that he gets wrong.
Yeah, but he does it on purpose because he's sort of trying to jam it into a very right-wing political agenda in that regard. But one of the things that I think he was the most apt about is the idea that like archetypes matter. Mm-hmm. And that memes matter as well. And I feel like this is something that the left is sort of like neglected in that regard, and we've given that sort of power over, we've surrendered that territory to the right. Like, I remember when Pepe was like a thing in 2016 or whatever, there were like people like liberals and shit who were like, memes are just bad, like any memes, we should just not do memes because memes are bad, basically. Like, the right
I remember that.
Someone literally did that a week ago on Twitter. They said it was some person, cartoonist or whatever, said, I joined a Discord, and when I saw all the, what are they called? Emoticons? Things that you use in the chat. Yeah, like all of them were Pepe, so I had to leave immediately. And like even the more liberal kind of leftists were like, come on, seriously, we're still getting upset about Pepe's.
Yeah, it's crazy to me though, because the just the sheer lack of mimetic power that the left has, like really, really, and I think it's because we've lost touch with our vital essence, especially because of how like, and I fucking sound a bit weird now. We've lost touch with our vital essence in the sense that we're cut off from like visceral experience and trapped within the spectacle, I think. And I feel like it seems like the left is sort of rejected not only like archetypes and, these sort of mimetic forms of meaning, but also like visceral experience in the way that the right hasn't. But then you have sort of the one meme that's sort of been semi-successful on the left has been like the grill pill meme. But it's successful in the sense that it conveys an idea successfully in a very sort of concise way. But it's not as successful in the sense that it hasn't really left the left. It's not really become viral, like a viral agent in the way that other memes have, because it's just sort of something that's
because he needs to write the book already. That's what he needs to do, write the Grill Pill book.
I don't know if it's possible, though, because the thing that gives memes their power is the fact that they sort of arise spontaneously and organically, and you can never really trace their origin. And I feel like the memes that where you can trace the origin to like a specific person are the ones that tend not to kind of be as viral, because they have too much of they're already claimed.
I mean,
like
12 Rules for Life was a bestseller, and Consider the Lobster is a thing that I say every single day.
Yeah, but it's a meme that's based around figure rather than a meme that's supposed to convey an idea. And 12 Rules for Life is a book. It's a text. It's not a meme. It's not a distilled form of an idea in an image.
Sure, yeah.
In that regard.
That's fair.
And it's easy for us to make memes around figures. It's a lot harder to distill big ideas down into small kind of tiny
absolutely.
little bite-sized pieces. And Grill Pill is just one word, but it has, within it is sort of tucked in the idea, this like really big idea. And it seems like the left has a lot of trouble being able to do that, and it's because we don't have any archetypal power. Like the right wing is able to sort of prey on like lizard brain things. They also drape themselves in arcane imagery as well. They are able to tap into these sort of notions that have existed from time immemorial, things like family, values, honor, all of these different really macro ideas that we sort of we're just reject, deconstruct, and it's why we don't really have any sort of archetypal essence to build from. And that's why
cancel culture is not real.
And that's why, kids, the left can't meme. I remember the worst one for me, the worst left meme was when the whole conversation about free speech was going on, and that free speech meme made me cringe so fucking hard. Remember it?
Yeah, I avoided using that term. It's not necessarily that it made me cringe, but I knew that it had a shelf life.
Yeah, but it wasn't even funny, and neither did it really convey any idea.
Well, I mean, that's exactly why it has a shelf life, though. Because, like, okay, so I can say Consider the Lobster, and we all smirk and laugh at it. Like, I could say, you know, any number of things that, like, are actually genuinely funny that we've all heard a million times that still makes us laugh. That stuff it's more time immemorial. Like, it doesn't really, you don't think about it in terms of like, all right, well, that's going to have an end at some point, because like, it's funny. Like, it's something like the free speech thing. It's just, it's forced fun.
Yeah.
Like it's mandatory fun.
Yeah. And it's not actually trying to convey an idea. It's just like, you know, when a kid makes fun of you and
it's
you're
a dunk.
Yeah, it's like when a kid makes fun of you and you're like, no, you're the idiot. It's like, it's got that kind of like weak, impotent sort of punch to it.
I think the worst forced meme by far is John Oliver's Drumpf thing.
Oh,
yes. Drumpf is such a perfect
he
example
made
of
such a fucking big deal out of it, like had like, you know, like the over the top like episode like where he's like, Drumpf, this is what everyone's gonna use.
Yeah.
And they did, and it was the worst.
Yeah.
Drumpf was the most okay. So that really a lot of the Trump meme insults, like Drumpf,
Cheeto in the White House,
Cheeto in the White House,
God.
Orange Man bad, etc. Like all of that stuff just makes me like go, wow, we really don't know how to fight like the meme war.
No.
Like we don't have all the memes on
But it's
tap.
because in order
we need to
to
alphabetize our memes, guys. It's a problem.
But that's the thing is, if we're looking at it from a Jungian perspective, like memes are these sort of distilled forms of like pure energy, and we don't have energy. We're basically robbed of our vital essence.
We don't have humor.
No, we don't
Like,
have it. We don't have. But that's
it's so humorless.
Yeah.
It's so horrible.
Yeah.
And you can't make any kind of vague. I mean, like, not to sound like a fucking one of those dumb, like, offensive comedians who are like, you're not allowed to make jokes anymore, and he's like 50 years old. That's
You
not
sound
what I
like
want to
Jerry
sound
Seinfeld,
like.
Ashley. Come on.
You know, I don't do college campuses anymore because you can't tell jokes.
It seems so much like you can't make jokes
Not even
anymore.
wrong, okay? They're not even wrong.
Why can't you make jokes anymore? A
try so hard and they don't let me.
Because whenever I watch stand-up comedy with Jake, I always have the like weird like SJW archetype in my head. Basically like, well, that joke was distasteful. Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Like I remember in the Joker movie, there's like a stand-up set that he goes to see because it was like, oh, like, you know, women think about sex in the way they think about buying cars. Is it reliable? Like, how does it have a long shelf life? Blah, blah, blah. But then the way men think about it is like a parking space. If it's disabled, I hope nobody sees me park there. But I can imagine if someone tweeted that, then people would try to murder them for it, if you know what I mean, even though it's just a joke.
It would be said that they deserve to contract terminal cancer.
Yeah, basically.
That would be the response.
Yeah.
And maybe pressure would be applied to that person's job.
Yeah, basically.
And maybe they'd have to, you know, make a public apology.
Yeah.
And maybe that type of like,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I play that scenario in my head with like so many things I see constantly.
But what you guys did is like literally what the left does is it makes fun of the sentiment that actually has legs. It's just like, oh, these comedians complaining about not being able to tell jokes anymore. Ha ha. And you just look like a fucking asshole, you know? Like, yeah, there is a real problem underneath that. And just a lot of the left's humor is cope. I think that's what I'm trying to basically say.
Yeah,
a lot of the left's humor is cope.
true.
It's sort of a way of coping with criticism in a way that dismisses it, in a way that doesn't have to make you examine it, because you're just like, my mode is the best mode, and anyone who questions it must be some kind of idiot that must be laughed away. But people are really laughing at you. It's not a shared joke that people can be in on. People are laughing at you and you're laughing. It's like in school when the bully makes a joke and then you laugh along with the bully because you were trying to deflect the negative energy that's being sent towards you. But it doesn't stop the negative energy that's being sent towards you from coming towards you, basically. And yeah, the left doesn't have vital energy. It doesn't have a sense of humor. And even then, if you look at a lot of the memes that are sort of lionized among leftist sort of millennial circles, they're not images of archetypical empowerment. They're images of pathology. And that is scary to me. Like things like the doomer, things like the coomer, things like, you know, the like all these different memes are sort of like viral forms of misery. And they're sort of lionized as things that are normal and things that people should try to emulate and try to sort of build their lives around or try to sort of take on as a persona. And that is definitely terrifying to me. And it's eroding sort of areas of meaning, like even something like a simp. There are people who go around sort of proudly calling themselves simps.
Look, Andrew, being a simp isn't a poor man's game, okay? Being a simp isn't a poor man's game. You got to have money to donate.
You're talking about being a simp, he's talking about being a simp like it's golf. Like, oh, it's not a poor man's game. Like it's like some kind of refined.
Okay, you don't need to pay for the OnlyFans to be a simp.
Yeah, it's free.
All you have to do is literally say anything in response to a woman, and that means you're a simp on Twitter.
That sounds like some entry-level simp behavior, if you ask me.
No, that's the extent of the meme. The meme has gotten to such an extent, though, that like if you respond to a woman, that literally like stop simping.
If we look at the more ancient form of the simp, or the simp archetype or whatever, the simp is, if you're going to look at the positive manifestation of it, the simp is somebody who's like the poet, basically like the person who makes themselves receptive to nature. It's almost like they make themselves a feminine receptive vessel, and they're sort of rejecting the traditional masculine archetype of the active, whereas they're the passive observer of nature, which is like archetypically feminine, and they sort of devote their life to and worship it almost, or whatever. So that's like the more positive, I guess, manifestation of it. But then you have the negative manifestation in modernity, which is like somebody who is unable to form meaningful relationships because either because they don't have the social fortitude to do so, or because they have too much pathology and they would rather have a feminine figure that they can sort of project onto and control and somebody who can't reject them because they're being paid, and somebody who cannot sort of like it's hard to have human interactions because there's the risk of rejection and there's the risk of being misunderstood and all of those things. So it's this sort of curated form of a romantic experience or sexual experience, and that's pathological. That's not healthy, especially the fact that it's, in my opinion anyway, this is just my opinion, I don't think it's healthy. I think it's pathological on both ends in that regard. And like a lot of the stuff that is being lionized, these memes are manifestations of kind of digital neuroses that we've sort of taken on because of the way that the internet has atomized us and focused all of our energy. It's like an energy loop that gets focused within rather than one that's being projected out into experience of the world. And now all of these new like mental diseases, especially like the pill memes, like the pill is basically like a viral agent that is a big idea distilled into this small form. But these sort of things are really just spreading misery. So it's not only someone's personal misery, it's now misery distilled that can be spread out and reach its tendrils into the minds of like millions of people. And nobody really analyzes these memes or question them. We just sort of go around repeating them, calling each other the names of the memes, pretending to be the memes or trying to embody the memes. Like I can definitely name a lot of people who have built their lives around trying to embody these archetypes, and it's making them sick. Like it really is making them sick.
Well, it's a lot of YouTube channels are literally like that. That's the idea of the YouTube channel. Somebody trying to sort of embody one of these meme archetypes.
Archetypes are dangerous, but they're also kind of empowering because you can, in an empowering sense, you can control the archetype by possessing it, but it can also possess you without even realizing it. And you can start to sort of become untethered from your actual self and sort of a vessel for this like cultural form that's sort of living through you. And I feel like the left doesn't really analyze any of this stuff. And worse, we've not really been able to reverse engineer it to sort of work for us in the way that the right wing has been able to do, because their ideas are more simplistic.
It's not even just as easy as their ideas are more simplistic. Their ideas are the default right now. Like you can go,
yes,
capitalism doesn't work, and they can go, yes, because there are millions of people that in which it quote unquote does work for, or in which quote unquote believe it works for them. So they can have the confidence to say yes. And then it's upon your position as the opposition and it's the same thing whenever you come through with any of the fucking sort of
disprove,
extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This is the phrase that is always thrown around by rational people and whatever. And so if you say our entire economic model needs to change, you can't then just go yes. You have to go, this is how. And like that's not funny. And it's not exciting, which is kind of the point I was trying to make before in our bonus episode, is that it's not particularly riveting. It's not particularly someone that even if you're interested in all of this stuff, like in politics and all of this, you don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of like organizing all of this stuff, because it would be your entire fucking life.
In order for us to be able to unleash the archetypical power within our ideas, we have to take it away from the macro political and down to the everyday. I think that that's the way that it's done, because if you're trying to sort of distill, it's very difficult to distill these really grand political ideologies and theories into very bite-sized ideas, but it is easy to sort of talk to people's everyday experience and how the system affects them in their everyday experience. And that's why I think Real Pill has been one of the memes that from the left that has sort of had a little bit of legs, because Real Pill is all about ways of establishing groundedness and normality away from the spectacle of political internet drama, discourse, and being too absorbed within the sort of political like domain to the point where you're not a functioning, healthy, and grounded human being. And that's something that sort of speaks to people's everyday. And I just used a lot of words to explain Girl Pill.
There's a key word here. and it's spectacle. Like the grill pill, it's not necessarily exactly the same thing as the I don't remember what year it was published in, but the Situationalist International, one of their founding texts is The Revolution of Everyday Life, which is more or less where a lot of the language that Debord uses on having and being. I mean, it actually goes a bit back further to Frankfurt School stuff, but it's really sort of established in that text. And it is very much about the fact that, the shared experience of everyday life is kind of the actual remedy for the spectacle.
Yeah, exactly.
The actual point of the Situationalist International was situationalism as a whole, was this idea that you could sort of snap people out of this spectacular daze that they're in by engineering situations which cause people to connect, have actual experiences that were linked by relationships, etc.
Like the Joker, but not evil, basically. Like one of the examples I like to use is the Situationists who they went into this big business convention in, I think it was Wall Street, and they basically did a presentation about turning human shit into food for the third world. And a lot of the business people who were there were like, yeah, this is a wonderful product type of thing. None of them really understood that they were being punked, and they were sort of a lot of the stuff that Eric Andre does could be considered situationist. A lot of that sort of
absolutely
anything that sort
100%.
Anything that sort of breaks people out of the spectacular haze. And what these situationists were making fun of was the sort of deadness of business ontology and how you could really sell anything using business ontology and jargon, basically. And there are so many.
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many things that we could be doing, and I feel like the artistic forms of the left need to be things that don't push people further into the spectacle, but sort of jolt them out of it. And that's why a lot of the memes that come from the right wing are sort of steeped in misery. They're sort of steeped in this sort of celebration almost of alienation and atomization. And instead of the left to sort of do the opposite and try and bring people's vital essence back to them, we engage on their own terms.
Well, a large part of both comedy and the memes and all of this stuff is still largely dependent on the way an audience receives something. Comedy more so than anything. And I feel like we're not even at the stage yet where the majority of people will accept the absurdity of everything. I think COVID-19 and pandemic and stuff has definitely kind of helped people get to that point where they go, this is fucking ridiculous. The way we have shit organized right now, this is mad. But before you even get to that point where that's a consensus, to then suggest things beyond this, even just to acknowledge that this is a problem. Because most people, even to this point, I mean, I had this conversation, I think, in our Patreon the other day, in our Patreon Discord, of if there was a fucking election tomorrow, Boris Johnson would still win. There isn't a consensus amongst the population that this is absurd. There's still a consensus that this is just something we have to deal with, and we're just going to knuckle through and carry on with the same old shit. And so if you're not even at the point where you can accept the absurdity of reality as it is in late capitalism right now, then how can you even make a joke that's going to fucking suggest post that?
But that's the thing. That's the job of artists on the left, is to draw people's attention to that absurdity. And that's what situationism is about. It's about finding these cracks in the matrix and emphasizing them, being able to sort of point people towards the absurdity of everyday life. And I feel like the left doesn't, we direct all of our libidinal energy, our vital essence, towards dunking on the right wing. And none of our libidinal energy is going towards, exposing these faults and these absurdities in the system. And that's why we're drained. When you see leftists online and the discourse and stuff, it's a dead discourse. It's a drained discourse. It's a discourse that's devoid of libido. And and the libidinal energy, like I said, that we do have is sort of wasted on dunking on people.
Or policing each other. A lot of what people put their sort of libidinal energy into is not just dunking on the right, but like arguing with other people on the left about what it is to be left. Like a lot of it is so much of this, like, I got it right, you got it wrong, and we should all move over to this version. And it's just like, it's fucking stupid. Like I can't tell you how annoying it is to see people put all of this energy into telling everybody else exactly how they're bad. And like, I don't think that like I'm right about everything or anything like that. I don't think that, any of these people who like were even sort of watching each other attack. I don't think that everybody's wrong about everything. What I think is that it feels just very good. And I think that that's the thing that they do it for. I think that as much as like it does come off as very doomery, it does come off as very upset, depressed, under a malaise and all of this stuff. But I think there's also a comfort, a satisfaction that comes from it.
Like they're Coomers. The people you're talking about are Coomers. People who expend all of their libidinal energy on it's like when you have like an addiction to porn, or you have an addiction to, that's what a Coomer is, someone who has like an addiction to pornography and who doesn't care about anything else except getting that hit of dopamine that they get from, expelling their masturbatory energy in that regard. But then they have no energy left for any of the other areas of their life. And I feel like that's what the whole dunking culture is. It's this sort of empty libidinal satisfaction. It's this sort of it's an infantile Oedipal fantasy that kind of like, it brings, again, it's like a loop inwards. It's not a loop that takes you outwards, that takes you into connecting. It's a loop that takes you infinitely inwards, and it's this sort of infinite regression. And that's kind of why this whole dunking culture is so, they love it. They don't want to take it. They don't want you to take it away from them, because it's like the comfort that they get from the alienation of like everyday life, the real world, how bad political stuff is. This is just like their one comfort.
The other day, I saw a picture where they were showing that the garbage men in New York, they get promoted to an extent that they get like a military uniform. And like the pictures in the tweet, they gradually look more and more like the captains in WALL-E. And I made that observation. And they did not like that. People did not like that. They said, well, at least the garbage men are doing something productive for society.
Oh my God.
Which my response was, the captains in WALL-E make the announcements. Like that's the most productive thing that anybody in WALL-E does.
Sometimes I wonder though, because like I said, there is that sort of digitally induced sort of social ineptitude that a lot of people suffer through these days. And I feel like I wonder if that's sort of the cause of this humorlessness, because in order to sort of understand humor or appreciate humor, you have to have a nuanced like knowledge of social cues. Basically, you need to know how to you need to know how you have to know how to read the room. You have to know how to tell in the inflection of someone's tone whether they're joking or not. You need to know what hyperbole is. You need to know, and like, when dealing with sort of this mass populist form like Twitter, it's not the same as like when you're in the real world. And I guess that's where I move on to like this sort of archetypical remedies that Witchy Angie proposes for these problems. Is number one, we need to get our vital energy back. And in order to get our vital energy back, we need Grill Pill.
You need to take low society supplements that we have just added to the store at lowsociety.net. Head over there. We have brand new Nutriums and vitamins.
You need to drink Low Society bone broth immediately to get rid of the soy that the system has pumped into you.
There's so much soy. They've been putting it in the water.
Well, no, I mean, Grill Pill is a successful meme for the left specifically, because I think it works for the left. I don't think it's something that's supposed to have this sort of mass viral appeal. I think it's specifically by leftist, for leftist kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's step one, is sort of removing oneself from the spectacle, engaging in activities in real life that restore your energy, that restore your sense of self. The Dadaists and the Situationists both believed that the self cannot be discovered through rumination and like thinking alone. It's discovered through action. And I feel like the left sort of tells people that you'll discover the true essence of who you are the more you sort of sit around and neurotically analyze things with other people. And you're just sort of digging yourself into a deeper hole. The way that you discover the self is through active engagement with the world and also other people. The self cannot be actualized in a vacuum. You need other people. Like in the past, in the past in human cultures, you had elders who initiated people who had been through that process of individuation that helped others through that process of individuation. So find yourself, find people, allow other people into your life to become catalysts to help you grow in that regard, because you can't grow sitting in front of a computer screen, and you can't grow without any sort of tangible.
You've never been to a porno website.
Gross. That's really gross. You're like my older brother, and like I don't want to hear you say things like that. It's so wrong.
I suppose in a way that does kind of link back to the Michaela Peterson thing, because with her and her partner, they come from like completely two different perspectives, and yet they're together, they're happy. Mm-hmm. They have children together. So
they're collaborating and killing Jordan Peterson together.
yeah. And I feel like the left makes itself so insular, like a tiny little snow globe with like just, I mean, like in most of the families that I know, there's like a liberal mother and a Republican dad, and that's like just
and
how
they
it
love
is
each other
for some reason.
They love each other
and they're together.
Yeah.
They're happy. They're in their boomer little like, you know,
people
communities having a great
Peter Griffin,
and Lois.
he goes and he does all of the stuff, and Lois Griffin, she's there to say like, you know, maybe that's not a great idea. And
no, but then again, like I said, like love isn't this rational thing that you can distill or explain, and those couples oftentimes connect on other things. Like there are a million other areas where you can have things in common with someone that aren't political that you can connect on, and also they love each other and they fuck and they're happy. And
there better be fucking jam donuts in that pussy. That's all I'm gonna say. She's basically like fucking standing for imperialism and all this other crazy ideology and shit. That gotta be goddamn jam donuts in that pussy for me to still be one.
No, but then again, it depends, because we live in a world. We live in a real world, and
we live in a society.
We live in a society, yes. And people don't necessarily.
Jake and I are just like, I'm going for it. I'm saying it.
We live
in a society.
We live in a real world, and we live in a society. We live in a real world, and we live in a society. Yes, a low society, where people have to do things like.
This is deteriorating.
Yeah, this has really turned into something, hasn't it?
Any relationship can work, clearly.
No, but I'm saying it can, because people have to do practical things, and political ideology is one thing, but being able to have a steady home to raise kids and things like that, being able to like be partners with each other isn't like, I mean, there are legitimate situations where people have to sort of cut out toxic family members for sure. Whether it be because they're discriminating against you, or they're making you uncomfortable, or making your life hell in some way. But I legit know people who won't talk to their uncle because he like isn't as woke as they would like him to be.
He voted for Trump.
Yeah, not because he's like a bad person.
Uncle Rick voted for Trump, and that's why he's not invited to Thanksgiving anymore. Because I'm not talking to a Trump supporter.
Yeah. And not because they're a bad person, or because they specifically wish you.
No, it's because of their political views.
Yeah, and not because they particularly wish you ill, because a lot of those people have family members who still love them a lot, but just sort of disagree with them politically, but they still sort of further atomize themselves away from these sort of familial connections because of political disagreements.
Like, and the thing is half of the time it's literally just like the boilerplate dumb shit that you hear on TV, all the like, because the liberals are like, they like to consider themselves nice and woke, but they'll repeat the same kind of essentialist shit with a nice woke spin on it.
Exactly.
And somehow they're the good guys.
Exactly. It's interesting though, because like the other prescription I had, other than sort of going out and enjoying sort of visceral experience as best as you can, obviously we're in COVID, so that the stuff we can do is limited. But even just as simple as having half an hour.
It's supposed to be limited, okay? That doesn't stop you from going out and having a great time at a Smash Mouth concert. You can go to a Smash Mouth concert, masks.
We don't endorse or encourage that sort of thing on this podcast for sure. Be safe out there.
Smash Mouth does, though.
Well,
they had a really great concert without any masks.
Even if it's something as simple as having half an hour of exercise a day that's away from the internet, even if you were just to start that way, even if it's just something as like reading a book, even if it's just something as simple as like half an hour of journaling or half an hour of meditation or anything that is sort of enriching yourself, that isn't sort of being absorbed in the spectacle, then you're really doing yourself a vital service of raising your energy, basically, and being able to sort of retain a positive energy rather than just sort of seeping out of yourself in ways that are useless. And then there's also, once you're able to sort of raise that energy, then use it in positive ways. Don't just spunk all of your spunk on dunking on people. Don't spunk all of your spunk on getting into stupid arguments with people or wasting time. Use that energy to sort of create ways of highlighting the sort of absurdity of the spectacle that we're all trapped within. I think that that's sort of the remedy to the sort of mimetic problem.
It's the cum pill.
Yeah, it's the cum pill. Take the cum pill. It's like you
take the cum pill.
You retain the cum and you use it on something. It's the edge pill. Well, it's even a principle. It's even a principle in like magic as well. It's even like it's a principle in like occult magic as well, because like people like Aleister Crowley and Austin Osman Sphere would like use sex magic in order to sort of achieve their will in the world. And the idea was by using sexual energy, like storing sexual energy and using it in a way that was for your will, or to sort of in sort of useful, positive ways, could like enact change in the world. So yeah, it is the cum pill in that regard.
You charge up your energy until the right time, and then that's when you go Super Saiyan.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when you beat Vegeta.
Well, the reason why Vegeta...
You can't beat Vegeta without going Super Saiyan.
The reason why Vegeta...
Like, he's going to beat you, because he'll go Super Saiyan.
Yeah, because he's got his vital energy charged, and the only way that you can charge your vital energy is by doing things that are life-affirming and fulfilling and not wasting that energy on bullshit, basically.
Collecting all of the Dragon Balls.
Exactly.
No, mate, we need to take a note out of Master Roshi's book and just chill on fucking Kame Island and peace the fuck out.
He does what we're talking about, though. He's like a constant masturbator, that guy.
Just constantly
he's the subject of criticism here. It's charging your energy for the right time when you can go Super Saiyan. That's the real goal.
Well, that has been this episode of Low Society. We hope that you enjoyed listening to this cum-filled episode of Low Society. Make sure that you...
The cum pill is the name,
The cum
obviously.
pill. I think we should coin it. I thank you for listening to the episode. Be sure to leave us good ratings. Be sure to engage with us, because that helps as well. So leave comments if you can. We have a Reddit as well. So go cause shenanigans on there, or defend us if people try to cancel us on the Reddit, because apparently that happens sometimes. So yeah, use your...
And don't forget to go to lowsociety.com to pick up your vitamins and nutrients.
Exactly. Restore your vital energy.
And your shelter, your Low Society brand shelter for the coming apocalypse.
Come to the Patreon, come play Fall Guys with me, and help me complete GTA heists, because that's fun.
So much fun stuff other than listening to this podcast, which admittedly very fun, right, guys?
Oh
right?
my God, so much fun.
Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks so much, everybody.
And we love you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.